Right, let's now take you back to Cape Town, where Michelle Craig is standing by in the studio in the City Hall precinct. Michelle, very good morning to you. Expectations are high as a lot is weighing on what President Cyril Ramaphosa will deliver this evening.
Well, good afternoon to you, Mpo, and to our viewers as well. And yeah, you're absolutely right. Expectations are incredibly high. What will the president say? And will he recognize this moment of crisis his country is in when he takes to the podium at 7 o'clock this evening to deliver the State of the Nation address? We're going to get you some political analysis on the various issues feeding into this moment today. Sanusha Naidu is a political analyst. She joins us here at our satellite studios on the Grand Parade. It's opposite City Hall, where the SONA will be taking place this evening. Sanusha, great to see you. Thanks for giving us your time this afternoon. There are so many issues, it's difficult to know where to begin with our discussion, right? But let's perhaps start with what many South Africans, I think, might have on their minds as we build up, as journalists and interested parties, to the State of the Nation address. When we think about it, what is the, and we were discussing it just a moment ago, what is the value of this address and what is the return on this investment?
Oh, good day, Michelle, and good day to the viewers. I think it's a very prominent and pertinent question to ask, is what's the utility of this address now, in the current moment that we find ourselves within the so-called 29 years of our democracy. I mean, next year is going to be a milestone in terms of 30 years and so forth. But I think the value proposition is beginning to wane really fast, decline in terms of whether ordinary South Africans actually take the speech seriously. I think rhetorically, yes, all of the right tones, all of the issues will be mentioned. We in a crisis, we need to deal with this, we are addressing this. I mean, that's what the State of the Nation is about. It provides a roadmap for a year ahead. Unfortunately, I think South Africans, and just looking around us on this Grand Parade, which is very historical as well, because the City Hall is where Nelson Mandela was when he was released, or was, you know, as a political prisoner. Yeah. This is where he came and gave that speech. And quite significantly, Ramaphosa was the guy holding the mic at the time. So I think it's significant in so many ways, but also becoming extremely non-significant in the ordinary lives of South Africans. South Africans are feeling the pain. They're feeling the pinch. They're not just feeling, you know, a little bit of load shedding there, a cost of living there hike. It's across the board, and it's basically impacting their lives in a deeper way than I think politicians will appreciate and begin to realize. And this is why I think the State of the Nation address needs to now start thinking about its utility, its value proposition, and does it really have the kind of oomph that it should have? Because I don't know if you feel the same way that I do, but just talking and looking around in the mood around the Grand Parade and coming down this morning, ordinary South Africans have checked out. So I think at the end of the day, with the speech being televised this evening, and of course hopefully it won't be load-shedded, that will be another issue in terms of whether South Africans are going to turn on their telly or their radios or go onto social media and say, I'm very, very excited to hear what the president says, because I think they've become apathetic and they've become completely nonchalant to this presidency.
And they've lost trust, haven't they, in the promises that are made from that podium. There's that balcony behind us, Sanusha, where Nelson Mandela stood in 1994 with Cyril Ramaphosa holding the mic on that balcony at City Hall. So it wasn't always this way, the State of the Nation address, was it? It's relatively new to our democracy. It was an event that took place in the late morning, early afternoon, in Parliament, where the President came, everyone stood, he walked down and he delivered the State of the Nation address. When did we start to include all of this pomp and ceremony?
The expenditure, the pomp, the ceremony started, I think, if my memory serves me correct, and I will be corrected on this one, is during the presidency of Jacob Zuma. I remember coming to State of the Nation address when President Mbeki was here and was president, and it used to be around about 11 o'clock. And the challenge was where ordinary South Africans will be at work. Are they actually tuning in to listen to the State of the Nation address? It was not this kind of grand parade of an affair. It changed. And the amount of money that's being spent on something that we're not testing the value proposition on, the utility, is it still fit for purpose? Because the idea was that you wanted the nation to listen to the president and what the president had to say. But I think the opposite effect has happened. Talk about trust. We are going to have an Afrobarometer survey that's going to be released very soon, and I heard a little bit of had a bit of a peek view into some of those results. Percentage of trust in institutions have declined tremendously. If I stand corrected, I think in the Parliament, the trust has declined by half. So it's from 54% to half, and that tells you what Parliament is significantly representing in terms of trust, but it's across the spectrum, in the courts, in the judiciary, in the police, across the institutional architecture of the state. So this kind of pomp and ceremony with a very, very pricey tag to it, and of course, let's not forget all the MPs are dressing up and they are basically doing their final fittings for the parade this evening. It's a costly affair, and I think ordinary South Africans would appreciate if that money was put into something much more productive to improve lives and livelihoods.
There's the saying about reading the room, isn't it? So the tone that Cyril Ramaphosa will take this evening is going to be important to see, because ordinary South Africans, you and I, we are experiencing on a daily basis the crises, the multiple crises facing our country. And we want an acknowledgement from the president, don't we, that we are in a crisis?
I think not just an acknowledgement that we're in the crisis, acknowledgement that we are in a mess that's going to have a very, very difficult time frame to basically get us just back to basics. We're not going to get there. I mean, when you listen to the Minister of Energy and he says to the mining indaba, 12 months, we'll sort out load shedding. Then you listen to the president, and he's got a different time frame. You listen to another ANC member in parliament or minister, and they got a different time frame. They're just not talking from the same script. And I think that level of confusion, uncertainty, and lack of cohesion and coherence tells us that they themselves don't know what they are doing in terms of this crisis. So if he is to come today and deliver the State of the Nation address, and I feel sorry for the poor guy, because I think at the end of the day he's catching all kinds of flack from, I mean, if you look at today's main newspapers, and you look at all the media reports, and you look at all the op-eds, everybody is just saying to him, do the right thing. Don't be that guy that just comes there and delivers the State of the Nation address. But at the same time, I think he needs to basically come back to the State of the Nation and ask them, what is your belief in terms of our State of the Nation? Where are you as citizens? And I think the problem here is that there's a fundamental disconnect and a very, very widening gulf between what the president and his ministers and the ruling party sees and what's really happening on the ground. Are they feeling the pain? I don't think so.
Ramaphoria wasn't too long ago. It's now been replaced by Rama Promises. That was a headline on one of the newspapers just this week, building up to the State of the Nation. The load shedding crisis, Sanusha, is probably, and you talk about various officials in government, the president himself not speaking from the same script. There are varying degrees of just how bad load shedding is in their opinion. But it's probably the one issue that's uniting South Africans around the big thing they're facing on a daily basis. It's households, it's children at school, it's small businesses, it's business owners, it's the unemployed. So many crises. It's healthcare and the lack of water in our hospitals. So many of our crises and our challenges stems from our load shedding crisis.
You know, it's not just about the fact that the lights go off and stuff is happening to you and whatever. It's a snowballing effect. It's a multiplier effect. So as you rightly point out, from housing, water, sanitation, to safety, security, to the fact that education is affected, to the fact that you have very poor economic infrastructure. I mean, it's just a massive, massive chronic problem. And whether or not you're going to put the lights, keep the lights on just for the State of the Nation address, and then we go back to business as usual where the lights go off. I mean, that's just complete disconnect from and complete lack of understanding of what the State of the Nation address should be doing. But I think ordinary South Africans are very, very aware of their circumstances. They're aware of their situation, and they actually, I think there was one person that was interviewed in one of the media stations recently, and she said, I would appreciate it if the president just came out and told us how bad the situation is. And I think that's what we want. We would understand, but we would also say that you need to take accountability. But this is where I think this becomes a serious problem, is that accountability is not there. This consequent management approach that the president had unveiled during his first term in office, well, he's still in office, but I mean, when he became president of the Republic after 2019, even before, he talked about holding ministers accountable towards some kind of consequent management performance appraisal. I haven't seen that. Nobody has been fired for basically being a bad minister. Nobody has been fired for basically doing very strange football deals. Nobody has been fired for whatever's going on. And I think this is what makes it difficult for people in his cabinet, and I'm going to say this with utmost respect to the president, to take him seriously. And this is where I think you can't be Mr. Nice Guy all the time. So I think at the end of the day, ordinary South Africans are working for that president, which we have yet to see in terms of the Ramaphosa or the New Dawn or what others have called the false dawn, etc. But I think we're waiting for that leadership and that expectation of leadership, and it's not there. So I think ordinary South Africans have now realized that they are going to have to become resilient. So you can't be paying for electricity that you don't get.
Get off the grid.
People are doing that. They're getting inverters. They're looking at alternative ways to create solar energy. They're looking at solar lamps. That's the interesting thing about South Africans. They're resilient. They're ingenious. They will find a way. But it's not that. It's the responsibility of the state. When you enter into a social contract with them, there are rights and duties and privileges, but you expect a similar set of rights and duties and privileges from the state.
Absolutely. Sanusha Naidu, we have a lot still to unpack, and we've got the afternoon to do just that. Sanusha Naidu is a political analyst as we build up to, yes, the State of the Nation address, but as we also ask, what is the state of our nation?